Hello, Garland Nixon here, and today we're going to talk about the economy. There are some very serious problems with our economy. Is it just Joe Biden? Is it something that just happened? Let's talk. Hello, Garland Nixon here, and we're going to talk about the economy today. And holy moly, we got 10, all of 10 people watching us. So let's see what the numbers get up. Chicken Patty, what's happening? All right, so let's look at let's think about the what we're talking about here. And that is so we can make it perfectly clear. When I say what's wrong with the economy, right? Well, let's go in two directions. Number one, when I talk about the economy, I could be talking about the process through which labor is divided and profits are made, and the return on the profits are divided, and investments are made, and all those kinds of things. That's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is output. What's happening? And here's what I mean. Are we getting wealth or prosperity? So problem A is, what is this machine, right? We can call it whatever we want to. We can call it socialism, communism, libertarianism, capitalism, whatever we call any particular system economic of economics is irrelevant. The two things that matter is, how does it work? But even more importantly, what does it produce? When I say wealth, what I mean is this: a system that is producing profits, but the benefit of those profits, either whether it's direct benefit, which means the money goes right into their accounts, or indirect benefit. In other words, if you're in a community and it's a wealthy community and you get better services, right? Or because the schools are funded based on the local tax base, you get a better schools, right? Things like that. So that's, what does this system produce? How does it? So I guess what I'm saying is this: what does the system produce, and how does it produce it, right? Start with something with words that I think is important. When you study Zen, you understand something very much about words, and I'm going to say, and I'll explain it before I get into this. You don't think about this unless you're into Zen, and you're going to think about it. When you use words to describe something, you have to understand the difference between the words that you are using to describe it and the thing that you are describing, right? The difference between the words I am using to describe this world, this universe, this economic system, and this world, universe, and economic system itself, right? So there's a tree. That is something. I know what that is, but I could use many different words to describe that depending on what language I use. So it's understanding that the words that you use to describe something aren't the same thing as that thing. So why did I say that? Let's talk about capitalism. What we call capitalism today is not at all the same thing as in the 1920s. The economic system was one thing. Laissez-faire capitalism, they called it, right? Then it comes FDR, and you get all of these economic controls and banking controls and things of that nature. You get a lot more of a social safety net. You get a lot of Keynesianism, where the government is putting money directly into infrastructure, directly into jobs and the people, right? The government, you're in a situation where the appearance was that the only entity that had the economic wherewithal to stimulate the economy was the government. That's Keynesianism, and then the government, William Maynard Keynes, and then the government did that. And that's a good idea, right? And there's some people think the government should never do it and stuff like that, all kinds of stuff, right? But at any rate, the system that you have, we called that capitalism, right? But before FDR, it was laissez-faire. It was practically no banking controls, no economic controls, right? In comes FDR. He starts things like the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commissions. He passes all of these, the New Deal banking laws, a suite of laws that over a course of time that restricted what the banks could do. You know, this Glass-Steagall Act is a perfect example. And what happened after that, this is why what I'm saying is important. What happened after that is after FDR passed these laws, right? And it's not an accident. Look what happened in the 50s and 60s. Look what happened. Boom! Gigantic economic explosion. But not only that, a big part of that was prosperity. People could, the average schmuck could get out of high school, get a job and make something and make a decent living. And there was that you had benefits, they had a retirement. There was a system that seemed to work okay for the little guy. My father's generation, it worked okay for the little guy, right? And of course, there's issues of racism and things like that. But the bottom line was my dad had a third grade education. He had a job, eventually ended up as a longshoreman. He was a third grade education, but I remember he was in a union. It was a very well-paying job and he had very good benefits, you know, so it enabled him to, you know, pass something on to the next generation. And I mean, like paying for education and things like that he wasn't certainly able to get in his generation, right? So a lot of that was going on. People were getting educations with the GI Bill and things like that had never gotten. People were buying houses. And a lot of this was what? Direct government stimulation. I'm not arguing for it or against it. I'm just saying that's what was going on then, and we called that capitalism. What we have now since the 1980s, some people use the term neoliberalism. Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan are kind of the mother and father of, not of it, of instituting it, right? It was convince the people that the government is the enemy and that the government should be not involved in anything. The government's bad. The government's evil. That's a bad sign. When somebody starts teaching you good from evil, that's a problem. But the neoliberalism was, in reality, when you get down to it, it was a self-serving racket. It was rearranging the economic system in a way that funneled all of the money to the top. Bill Clinton was next. He was every bit as liberal, as neoliberal as the rest of them. It was about deregulation, right? Deregulating the most powerful corporations on earth, relaxing the regulations with the argument that less regulations would allow them to do the work better and make more money. But implicit also in that was regulations would free the companies up, and somehow, for some reason, the companies would do the right thing. But they would do the right thing by their employees. They would do the right thing by society. They would do the right thing, you know, morally and ethically. That was implicit in there, but it never materialized. The truth is, neoliberalism, I'll put it like this: getting rid of regulations did not free corporations and powerful entities to do the right thing. Instead, they get their money and they buy their stock back. And so you had a number of things going on. Clinton and the Republicans got together, and they were able to relax a lot of the Glass-Steagall, wipe out the New Deal banking laws. And so what you had from the 60s and 70s, you had a change. Now, I could talk about what was going on overseas with the US, but let's just stay at home. You had a change to a more unregulated market, but the government became, isn't it interesting? Isn't it interesting? The argument was the government should not be involved in the market, should not be involved in the economic system, right? That was the argument. But interestingly enough, time and time again, look at 2008, the perfect example, the corporations destroyed the market, wiped the economy out to the point where, as was the case in 1929, in the early 30s, the government was the only existing entity that had the economic wherewithal to stop a complete collapse. Total and complete collapse. Because if you think about it, okay, people say, let the banks collapse. Well, that's one option if they'd have collapsed, but here's an issue. When your bond market collapses, you've got all these pension funds. And what happens when all these cops, firemen, what do you call it? State employees, federal employees, county employees, all these people all over the nation just suddenly get the pension funds collapse, and they all get a letter that says you're not getting your retirement anymore. And you're a retired cop, you're a retired fireman, retired teacher, retired state, federal, county, city employee, and you just get a letter. That's it. You ain't getting no more. So that can be problematic. could be problematic. So the bottom line was, so um, the market became much less regulated, very, very few regulations. Slowly but surely, we developed a regressive tax system, right? A regressive tax system, whereas the more money you have, the less you pay. And how do a lot of wealthy people get their money? Capital gains tax. You own stocks and bonds and all these things, and that comes in. That's not earned income. That's called capital gains, and that's taxed at practically nothing. So the person that works for a living, they pay income tax. They pay payroll tax and all this kind of stuff. The person who's wealthy and they've been left a trust fund, they pay capital gains tax, which is next to nothing. So all of these methods were developed for regression, so that the more you make, the less you have to put back into society, right? So the brunt is all borne by the working class, the working poor, and the poor. Another thing that happened was, because the banking system was deregulated for the most part, they started dreaming up magical schemes to make money. So what they would do is they would say, okay, we've got all of these loans, as an example, student loans. We're going to take these things and chop them up into 1,000,000 pieces and sell each of those middle 1,000,000 pieces, and say it pays whatever percentage, right? And set some kind of something where there's some kind of percentage coming out of there, and we'll call it an asset-backed security, and we'll call it a student loan asset-backed securities. That's magic. Doesn't really exist. We'll do things like we'll do credit default swaps. What is that? What are we talking about here? And derivatives. What's credit default swap? Here's the bottom line. I buy $1 billion worth of loans, right? Mortgages. I'm a bank, but you got all these mortgages. I buy $1 billion worth of them, right? What do I do with that $1 billion worth of mortgages? The first thing I do is I go to AIG and I take insurance out on them, so that if they all bust, then I'm going to get my insurance money. Well, when I bought them, I knew they were bad and I knew they were going to bust, but that ain't illegal. So I buy bad loans. When they go bust, I collect my insurance money. It's the equivalent of buying a house, getting a good insurance policy on it, setting it on fire. Or you already know somebody else is going to, it's going to burn down. It's already, how about this? You burn a house that's on fire. I mean, you buy a house that's on fire when you buy it, and then you take out fire insurance, and then it burns to the ground, and then you collect it. You knew it was going to burn down because it was on fire when you got it. So the bottom line is this. So we also top off all of these things together. We got rid of our industrial base. We got rid of our service base. Okay. We deregulated the banks and the magical money corporations on Wall Street. And we set it up so that money flows right up to the top. Then those people purchased the media, right? And so they control the rhetoric and the narrative, and they pretty much purchased Congress, or they got in it. And so now they own the media, they own the intelligence community, they're part of that. It's like one interaction of the intelligence community, the media, Congress, on and on and on. This dark web, okay? And now this is called some sort of democracy, and it's called some sort of capitalism. Now, it's not the same thing that we call capitalism in the 50s and 60s, but one could make the argument. True. Well, it would be a strong argument, come to think of it. Wherever capitalism is, this version of capitalism, wherever it is right now, is where capitalism eventually goes. You know what I mean? It's like if you take a road and you drive down that road and it comes to a bridge, that's where that road goes. That road doesn't go to the ocean. It doesn't go to the mountains. It goes to that bridge. If you follow that road, there's only one place you're going to end up, at that bridge, right? That's where that road goes, right? Wherever we are in capitalism, you can argue, and I'm not making a Marxist or a libertarian or anything. I'm just saying, wherever capitalism arose, and it morphed and changed and morphed and changed. And where we are today is what capitalism ultimately morphs and changes to. And it's going to continue to morph and change some more. How, I don't know, or crash. But that's where we are. And so when people say we are where capitalism took us, based on human nature, based on what happens when inevitably the people in corporations get enough power to buy the government and get rid of all the rules and regulations that prohibit them from doing things that are not in the best interest of the common man and woman. So what you're looking at is the situation where We're in the natural place we should be for capitalism, I would argue, or whatever this thing we're calling capitalism is now. We're in the normal place we should be. And what is the outcome of the system that we have right now that we're calling capitalism, right? What does this produce? Because don't get caught up in Joe Biden. Oh, it's a Biden economy. It's this economy. This is the Reagan economy. This is the a Clinton economy. This is the Bush economy. This is the Obama economy. This is the Trump economy. This is it. This is what we get. A volatile system that pumps most of the money right into the hands of the richest people on earth, rewards them for nothing. Then they grasp power in the media, they grasp power online, they grasp power in every which way, they grasp power in Congress, and they continue to steer this ship off a bridge. As far as we're concerned, onto the rocks. As far as we're concerned, the system is going in the wrong direction. But if you're one of the top 1%, it's never gone in the wrong direction for you. So, but the first thing to say is this: what's the problem with the economy? It's the economy. It is the system that we have. And so we're going to get caught up. We're going to blame Trump or Obama. We're going to blame Reagan. We're going to blame whoever. We're going to blame Biden. He's in now. We're going to blame them, right? The economy that we have produces this crap. It produces, no, I mean, before we even heard of a Ukraine or any of that stuff happened, before COVID, that October before COVID, this economy was about to crash. Here's what I believe. And when COVID hit, it gave them excuse to pump $5 to $7 trillion to these corporations and save the economy. COVID didn't kill the economy. They used the CARES Act to because it was on life support, and to pump some more energy into it and save it for a little bit longer, because it's a neoliberal economy. It is neither fish nor fowl. It is run by a small group of people. Okay, and Joe Biden is just another expression of this political and economic system. He is not the creator of it. He's one of the many people that went along with creating it. He did what he was told. He was just another prostitute in Congress going along with what the people who were writing the checks told him to do. But where we are now, it's funny because people talk about the inflation from Ukraine. Well, guess what? Inflation was going up before. But remember, they said it was transitory a year before, and now it's Putin's. Doesn't make sense, does it? Things were already broken. But I will argue this. When I was a cop, when I was running our training academy, I used to say lots of things to our students. And one of the things I said to them was, to recruits, there's no situation so bad that a cop can't make it worse, right? And so that's why I say there's no situation so bad that a presidential administration can't make it worse. So my point being, as bad as our shape as our economic system was in, ready to fall apart and blow out, the Biden administration came in and they added another very toxic element to it, and that is the sociopathic, psychopathic neocons who have this insane, lunatic thirst for world domination. So they decided they're going to pick a fight with Russia and China. So when our economy was doing what it was destined to do anyway, which was go to hell again, another crash in the economy, and at this time they printing so much money and they have so much issue with the supply chain and all of these other things, a system that just doesn't work, that it was crapping out anyway. And now they've got an excuse. But when it was already crapping out, they hit it over the head. It was stumbling around on the ropes, and they came in and hit it with a flurry. And that's the Russia sanctions. In this world, what we found out is this: we've got the world's industrial engine, which is China, and the world's commodities engine, which is Russia. And these idiots, these lunatics that run our country, decided to pick a fight with both of them at the same time. And so they're going to sanction Russia. And what they're doing is they're just wiping our economy out. Now, one of the things I said in the introduction to this article was, is there a cure? What is the cure? No. That would be the short way of saying it. No. I remember this. I watched this years ago, a show called The Last Starfighter. You might have heard me mention it before. And there was, they were in space or whatever, and the evil guys had this big ship, and they had been hit by whatever lasers, whatever, and their ship was having problems. And the helmsman looks to the evil captain of the ship, and he says, "Captain, we're caught in the planet's, there's a planet right next to him. Captain, we're caught in the planet's gravitational pull, and the helm's not responding. What do we do?" Right? Well, that's a bad situation to be in, isn't it? And they're getting pulled towards the planet. And the captain he had a little monocle, he pulls it down, and he looks at the helmsman, and he says, "We die." That was the answer. They were caught in the planet's gravitational pull. If they can't get out of it, they die. So he says, what are we going to do? We're going to die. And that was the reality. So my point is to be honest about the economy right now. What's going to happen to our economy? It's going to crash. It's going to get ugly. It's going to get bad, but not as bad as Europe. The United States, things will get bad, but the United States can produce its own. Now, here's the difference. I think the United States can produce its own energy and food and things of that nature. So the U.S. is better off. We'll have some food. We won't starve to death, and we'll have some energy, right? Oh, Europe is so done. So done. So this is the same economic system, the economic system of the West, really, of the New York and Berlin and London economic system. Those are kind of the hubs of it. They kept the things going in the West and kind of controlled the world. And now China and Russia are rising. India's rising. Brazil, Iran, there's all of these other countries that are rising. Mexico is going to join into this new G8 thing. So all of these countries are charting their own course. They're just saying to the US, screw you, man. You ain't powerful enough to tell us what to do anymore. There are people moving on. And they're looking at the economic system that the United States, that New York and London and Germany is pushing, and they're watching it crash, and they're saying, we don't like that. We like a different system. Let me give you an example. You might have heard me talk about this before. An economic system. What was Venezuela's economic system? They had Citgo, right? They had a gigantic company that made money, right? It was nationalized oil, and that funded the government, so people weren't taxed, and they used it to buy all kinds of stuff for poor people, right? China owns, I think, 70% of the businesses, and 30% of them are not government owned, and they fund their government right now. But let me add this: what does Russia have? Gigantic national corporations such as Gazprom. At the end, a lot of the mining, things like that is nationalized stuff. They're doing the same thing. It's a quote capitalist system, right? But it's not the same neoliberal system as we have. It's a bit more of an old school capitalist system in a Russia or a China or a Venezuela, right? They're not $30 trillion in debt. Much more conservative. So the thing about the system that we're in is not everybody's playing by apply those rules. A lot of the West, the East is going in a different direction. The global South is looking to go in a different direction. And it's because ours is crashing. And I don't care what you call it. The libertarians can say no, but we need more deregulation. And the socialists can say we need a more government-run industry, whatever the case may be. But we got what we have right now. The U.S. has been not only the capital of neoliberalism for the world, but a brutal enforcer of neoliberalism. Brutal enforcer of neoliberalism. So much so that the U.S. would overthrow your government and put in a vicious tyrant, authoritarian tyrant, to maintain neoliberalism and institute neoliberalism. And now it's come home to rest. And neoliberalism is very predatory. And it goes around the world looking for, that's the neocon. They go around the world looking for weaker countries where they can take their resources and they can prey on them, right? But what has happened with the neoliberalism at home is with this economic system that we have, it's now preying on its own. It's eating its own children. So it's preying on the people here. And what we have now is the inevitable pushback coming. There was 80,000 people in Brussels the last couple of days screaming and yelling. So what the Biden team has done and the neocons in dragging the world into this Ukraine conflict, in demonstrating how unstable and unreliable they are, is they've said to the world, look, we're not to be trusted. We're brutal. and we're not honest and fair. And I think the world's looking at the U.S. just saying, we've had enough of that system. We want to try something else. And I think that's what you're going to see. The U.S. can't really, I put it like this, the U.S. can't raise the restrictions and sanctions and just open Russia up for investment, because all of the capital would leave the West and go to Russia. I mean, all of these speculators would say, Russia's got all these commodities. I want to go buy, I'm putting my money in Russia. They try. Now, I believe Russia's in a position now where they don't trust the West, and they're not going to allow the West to, invest heavily in their country. As they say, sometimes it's easier to take a country with banks than it is tanks. And so I don't think they're going to do a lot of that. But I think what we're looking at is basically an economic system. Let's be clear. It's an economic system, regardless of how it works. It funnels money and power to a few privileged people, and everybody else suffers. And those everybody else are going to suffer worse and worse and worse. And oddly enough, our foreign policy being inextricably linked to our economic policy, the Biden administration sees the world slipping away. They think they want to have power and everything. They're living back in the 1990s. And now they're trying to, quote, confront Russia and confront China. I don't even know what their plan is. To weaken them? I don't, if they're like, we're going to confront Russia and weaken it, right? How? You're going to confront them by deliberately starting a war in Ukraine, which they did. The problem is, what happens if the Russians win, which they are? Then what? What happens when the Russians take whatever they want? Who's going to respect you then? They're going to say, well, you told the Russians don't do it. The Russians said, screw you. You've sanctioned for all you were worth. Nothing, didn't even phase them. Just ran off their back like water on a duck. And they went on about their business. The U.S.'s name is mud, as well it should be, because the reality is the world has changed, and the United States has to learn the hard way. Instead of trying to work with other countries, the U.S. has been trying to bully countries around, and now, basically Russia said, no, you're going to get out of Ukraine. You're not going to pump missiles and put nuclear missiles next to us, pointing at us. Not happening. The U.S. said, I'm not listening to you. They said, okay, we'll find out. And then, so, it's like you call somebody's bluff in the bar and punch, and they go ahead and punch first and say, let's go. Then the U.S. made a bigger era of saying, and this is all related to economics, by saying that this is a proxy war against Russia. Well, that's not a good idea, because you're going to lose it. And then you get a big narrative everywhere that you're winning, but you're not winning. And the reality is the Russia's winning this war. And when Russia wins it, everything the U.S. said will be put to shame. And the U.S. will just try to run with a different narrative. The problem, I'm predicting this. Here's where I'm going. The problem that NATO, the EU, Europe is going to have is that it's not militarily, because that's done. Russia's winning. And it's not really even economically, because that it is what it is. It's the pushback from people, the citizens, who basically have been told they have to suffer in this kind of ideological, economic, moral crusade against Russia. They're authoritarian and we're democratic. And through this paradigm, this is a moral crusade against the evil ones. And we're good and they're evil. And we must cleanse our society of anything related to the Russians. We must be cleansed of these filthy people. That's the way these nutcases are pushing it. Everything has to be canceled that's Russian, books, whatever, right? And then once we've cleansed ourselves, remember how that works, the scapegoat. We project all of the evil things that we do and think, we project them onto this goat, and then we get rid of the goat. When the goat runs off, everything bad is good. So we project all this stuff onto Putin, onto the Russians. They're evil for this reason and that reason, blah, 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 blah. Then you got to, destroy them. They go down, and then your troubles are gone, because you projected your troubles onto a scapegoat, and the goat escapes. That's because if you're a scapegoat, you escape. It's what you do. That's how you got the name. So bottom line is, the jig is up. The game is over. Neoliberalism is coming to a head. They pumped money into the market for so long. They can't, they can continue to do it, but it's only going to make matters worse. There's nothing else to deregulate. The system is, not only does it take all the money and direct it to a few billionaires, it gets better and better and more efficient at doing that. So all of them, if 99% of the money goes to all of the billionaires this year, next year it'll be 99.2%. Next time it'll be 99.3%, right? This system is bad because not only does it do bad things, it gets better and better at doing those bad things. So it's not in our favor. So what has to happen? I think, to be quite honest with you, there's been economic systems, Keynesianism, which could make an argument that Vietnam spending killed it, but Keynesianism washed ashore in the mid to late 70s. And we drifted into neoliberalism. And that is a couple of things for the most part. One of them being austerity for the working class and socialism for the rich and the corporation. Complete socialism for the rich and corporations. The government gives them money. The government grants things to them. The government bails them out when they make mistakes. They get pure socialism. The rest of us, we're on our own, right? And that's where we are. And that's what the system we are in now. And that system is washing ashore. And people are going to, because of, it's gone from, let me put it like this. 2008 it happened. It was exposed, right? It was never fixed. That was when the bleeding started, and it's continued bleeding, and our degree was bleeding, and it's been bleeding since 2008. And it was never repaired. It was never fixed. It was never sewn shut. It was never addressed. And we never stopped the reason that the artery broke open. In fact, we doubled down on all of it. So now I would argue that this is an extension of 2008. This is kind of the final crunch of 2008, the economy falling apart, which it was going to do regardless of all of this. But the neocons being in trouble with their warmongering and absolutely lunatic sociopathic ways have joined forces with the inherent flaws and contradictions of the neoliberal economic ideology. And this is what we get. And can it be fixed? No, there's no fix for this. But this is not the first time. Look, neoliberalism died in the late 70s and something else woke up, and a lot of Americans didn't even know it. They could see the changes eventually, but they didn't even know it. So don't think that there will necessarily be something definitive to a new economic order. I do believe this, though. If we're lucky enough to get out of this alive, all of us, I do look for things to happen in what we have known as the third world in the global south, because China and Russia are very much invested in Africa, South America, Africa, Latin America, Central America, things like that. They've made hay in making long years of relationship with those countries. And here's the thing about it. Here's what I want you to think about, to take away from this. It appears to me that in this new economic reality that we're seeing awaken on Earth, that people are understanding that it's not magical derivatives and asset-backed securities and credit default swaps that make the world go round. It's hard things. It's commodities, right? It's gold. It's palladium, it's titanium, it's oil and gas, it's energy, it's these things, these commodities, right? Like that everybody's seeing. Why is Russia stable? Because it has commodities. You can always no matter what happens, the only thing you can do is piss people off and make the economies go and make the commodities more valuable. Russia's just flush with money. It doesn't know what to do. It's got so much money, it doesn't know what to do. So my point being, I think in this new reality that we're in, the African countries, they've got a lot of natural resources. The Latin American and Central American countries, a lot of natural resources. So these countries in this new environment, a new economic world, I think will be able to do better. I think they will be able to, because remember, one of the problems that we've had in Africa is, let's be honest. Let's go back to the United Fruit Company. Let's go back to the gold and diamond mines and De Beers and all this in Africa and Coca-Cola and Nestle's in South America and Central America, right? And that is that a lot of peasants will be slaughtered and governments overthrown in order to get our hands on their resources. Whereas, let's be honest about this. People ain't going to want to hear this, but this is a fact. Russia and China tends to get themselves a good deal, but they tend to have a hands off your government. And now, sure, you can say, yes, some of the governments that they'll do business with are some nasty dudes. That's true. They'll do business with the Taliban. But here's the thing. Us too. We just pretend to care about human rights. They don't pretend to be the world's human rights courts. They're going to do business with a country that has the things they need, and they're going to do economic changes with them. And whether if the country's doing things it shouldn't, they ain't going to interfere in countries. That's the difference. And that's why Middle East, South America, Latin America, Latin America, Central America, all that, the Caribbean, Africa, these countries like to do business with them. And I predict that there's going to be significant changes and you're going to see a lot of economic growth. In the short run, in the short term, they're going to take a hit over the next year, as everybody is with the food supply. But I believe that after that happens, that when China and Russia, which they're building, Russia has this system that is similar to SWIFT. It's a payment system. A messaging system is what it really is. And a lot of countries are starting to get into that. So China and Russia are building an alternative economic system, and they're going to do business with these countries. Recently, Zelensky, within the last few days, so Zelensky had a meeting with the African Union, right? Online meeting. Out of 55 leaders in Africa, 4 of them showed. And they will not give a readout to tell us what they said. Let's not forget that the president of the African Union, who also happens to be the chairman of the African Union, who also happens to be the president of Senegal. His last name is Macky, M-A-C-K-E. Recently left Moscow, and he met with Putin. He gave him their support and said that they said Africa blames the famine and all the problems we have on these Russian sanctions. Do not be misled. Africa is clear. They're on the side of Russia. Africa is real clear. So when this starts to shake out, Africa's waking up also to realize that they have they've got a lot of natural resources that they can utilize to do similar things if they're not colonized and stolen, as has happened for so long. So at any rate, that's the long and short of it. I want to thank everybody. Holy moly, I got to go over here. I had a couple of people who were kind enough to give me tips on Rockfin, and let's look. One of them is Kinky. Says a little extra after my groceries for your dream studio, Garland. Thank you very much, Kinky. Kinky's awesome. And what do we got here? Is there anyone else? I know there's somebody else. Maybe not. I think that's all Kinky today. And on this side, guess what? We got super chats. Oh, here's one. Maybe only one, but I see it. And that says, for justice. Thanks for your alternate voice to the government and MSM narrative about domestic and world events that is embarrassing to a thinking person. Thank you very much. Any more? We got another one. Mr. Nixon, what you think of Bitcoin? Let me say this. I have a friend of mine who's a Bitcoin expert. And I said, well, Bitcoin's going down. What do you think? And they said, it's always done that. It says, just like anything, it's always gone up and down. Don't give up on Bitcoin. So I don't know, but I know someone who's a Bitcoin expert who said, don't give up on it. Kinky too. Hey, we got 2 Kinkys. Kinky too. Jerry Stiller and Ed Mir are rolling in their graves. So, but at any rate, so thank you all very much. Don't forget, anybody there who's on here, I'm kind of tired tonight, so I'm crashing early. Hey, smash that like button, smash that like button, smash that like button. We got a super sticker. Thanks a lot, CN. I appreciate that. Smash the like button. If you're watching this on Twitter, do me a favor, go to my Rockfin or YouTube, both ROKFIN /Garland Nixon. Go to my page and become a subscriber. Ideally, if you can become a member for $9.99 a month, that's awesome. And you can see my premium stuff, and you can see all premium stuff on Rockfin for $9.99 a month. So would appreciate anybody that can join. Certainly appreciate that. And wow, 43 people in Rockfin. How awesome is that? 221 on YouTube. So thanks a lot, people. Anything else? Donations? You can go look in the show notes. My PayPal information's there. Patreon. I do patreon.com /Garland Nixon. And then of course my Rockfin channel. Smash that like button, and join at rockfin.com, ROKFIN /Garland Nixon, at Garland Nixon on Twitter, Garland Nixon on Facebook, Garland.Nixon on Instagram, GarlandN at gmail.com. Garland and the letter N at gmail.com. Camilla V, Jay Matz. Oh man. You know what? I'm on BitChute now too, but I'm not, I don't know. I got to see if I can do Rumble. I'll check and see if I can add Rumble to this. Right now, Facebook has got me blocked. They won't let me live on Facebook, but I'm on YouTube. I'm on BitChute. I'm on right now Rockfin, and I am on running on Twitter. So, all right. Anything else? Let's see what we got here. Schiff's views are a complex topic with regard to BTC and some other things. God, I hate Adam Schiff so bad. Unless it's tied to, okay. I think that's it. Oh, interesting. The misconceptions, corporatization, and radical roots of pride was Jen Deer in Water. I wonder if that's a Native American. Sure sounds like a Native American name. All right. Thanks, everybody on YouTube. Thanks, everybody on Rockfin. Peace. I'm out.